Hi, and thank you for listening to this eighth episode of Mediumistic. I'm your host, Kristen Harlow. Today, I sit down with Intuitive Medium Per Borja to discuss the topic of exorcism, of house clearings, of energies that remain and spirits that remain, and the ways in which his practice has led him to pursue the avenue of house cleansing, of helping people to clear their homes of the energies that remain that may be creating circumstances that are uncomfortable for them. He is growing his practice and is really interesting to listen to as he talks about that experience. And I hope you enjoy. Per, thank you so much.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so very much for sitting down with me today. I love you so much. I love your work. I love your energy. Um, I joined, I think it was last year, a workshop that you led about manifesting love and manifesting romance.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, and I didn't, to be honest, I didn't join it because I was looking for romance or love. I wasn't, and I'm not. I joined it because I love your energy and what you have to
Oh,
offer. And
thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And I imagined that it would probably be exactly what it was meant to be. And I think what it did for me was align me the with the truth that I feel that I'm not looking for that kind of connection. And it aligned me with that, I think, more and helped me to see the beauty in that. So
I love
everything
that.
you offer is so just so energetically sound is the best way to put it. And
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Very
And
kind.
it's the absolute truth. But I wanted to start at least by talking to you about the idea of exorcism, and
Yeah.
yeah, a very fascinating topic that I think a lot of people in America, in the West, I think all over the world, are really interested in the
Mhm.
entertainment value behind exorcism, right? I mean, the first, probably the scariest horror movie I ever watched was The Exorcist, and I watched it
Yeah.
over and over and over again, and got myself into some trouble probably with it, and
Yeah.
by opening the portals to Ouija board and that whole
Oh
thing.
my
I
goodness.
definitely
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
But
Guilty as well.
yeah, I mean, when when you're a seeker of spiritual things,
Yeah.
horror films are going to be kind of like guilty pleasure, I think.
Yeah. And they still are.
Absolutely. I feel kind of, I shame myself about it a little bit. I'm like, I want to embrace a life of love and light. And here I am watching, axe murderers on screen. And I'm like, I probably shouldn't be doing that, but it's interesting to me. It's entertaining. And exorcism is one of those things, and there are more
Yeah.
and more movies. And I remember that when we were in circle together, because we were in circle together for a couple of years, there, an excellent
Mhm.
circle that I loved so much. um
Yeah.
you talked a lot about your experiences of having dreams, about being an exorcist in your dreams, and
Yeah. They
you
were
f-
so crazy.
yeah, and you felt like the dreams were telling you something about where your spiritual gifts were taking you. And I was wondering if you could share what those dreams were like, because I wouldn't be surprised if people who call themselves exorcists, even priests who apparently call themselves exorcists and
Mhm.
work as exorcists, I wouldn't be surprised if they have similar dreams and kind of a
Yeah.
calling to it. What was your experience with that?
Well, number one, I would not call myself an exorcist, but the dreams, it was so interesting because there was a moment where I would have them consistently, and I have a little dream journal that I write them down in, and I remember it was, like, within 2 or 3 months, there was, like, 4 or 5, different exorcism dreams, and they're all different. Sometimes I have an exorcism dream that looks like the scenes in The Exorcist, um, where I'm, exorcising a little girl or a woman. Sometimes there was a strange one where I was exorcising household appliances, like
Hmm.
poltergeist. Like they were like flying about in the house, and I had to exorcise. There was like demons in them. I had to get them out of the vacuum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes they get really esoteric and occult like, where there are like runes around me and a person in the center, and I'm wearing a black cloak and I have like a dagger. I'm not stabbing them, but it's just like a tool of divin or a channel, and I exercise them in that way. So they're never the same, and I haven't had them recently. Um, but I think what they were telling me, and this is me trying to be logical about, my spiritual dreams, which never is not usually how it happens. But I think they're telling me that sometimes in session, or just, when we're in circle, like I feel like we are doing energy work and energy healing while we're in that space. And I think the majority of my work has been a kind of exorcism within the session itself, of like drawing out these darker things in people's lives, and maybe things they haven't looked at, or things that they are looking at and that we're speaking about, um, to help them through it, or to help them heal from it, move on from it. But um, what's interesting is in London, which was where I am right now. I had my first experience of a house clearing here. I've done a couple in New York. Um, and I think some of my exorcism dreams have been calling me to do more of that as well,
Mm.
especially like the vacuum. Um,
Yeah.
but with this specific experience, um, and please stop me if you want to offshoot to something else. But
No, I'm really interested to hear this.
with
Absolutely.
this specific experience, I was meditating on the space first, like kind of projecting myself into their.
111. By the way, it's 111. Okay,
Oh, I
sorry.
love it.
Go ahead.
I've been doing a lot of that this week. I haven't been seeing them in a while. I was like, oh, is something wrong with me? But I'm happy that they're happening again.
Yeah. So
Um,
so start again. I'm sorry. I didn't even mean to interrupt. It just seemed important.
no, that's okay. Um, I was called in by a friend who was saying that her friend was having issues with their home, and like paranormal phenomena and weird dreams and people staying there and being really spooked out and leaving the next day. Um, and to be honest, I've never really experienced that. I've only experienced that when I actually go to people's homes and I feel the energy. But it's never happened to me personally in any home I've been in.
Where you
And
felt where you felt
like haunted.
uncomfortable or scared or
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so I went to this person's house. I was sorry, before that. I talked to this person and just kind of get a download on what they're experiencing. And they're talking about like loud bangs in the noise, and or loud noises in the night, and weird dreams and seeing things in the mirror. Um, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna meditate on your home before I get there, just to see if I can anchor myself onto anything. And so I meditate on the home and just try and like um envelop it in light and see what comes out. And I kept seeing like Kuan Yin for
Mm.
some reason, like statues of like Asian women and Kuan Yin figures. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I do my little meditation just to kind of I guess I call it prepping the home before I get there.
Mhm.
Um and when I get there, I was like, "Oh my god, he has like a full shelf of like Kuan Yin statues."
Wow.
And I think that was my way of like remote viewing into their
Uh-huh.
home, and like anchoring into a place that would be a good supportive energy to help with the clearing. Because I don't know too much about Kuan Yin, but I like her when I feel her, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
If
and
you read or listen to uh shoot, what's it? what's it called? It's the Sophia Code. It's called the Sophia Code.
Ah,
She
yeah, I'll write that down.
channels Kuan Yin at
Oh, I
one
love
point
that.
and has a whole story that she attributes to one of Kuan Yin's existences that kind of made her the
Wonderful.
goddess that she became. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think I need to start looking into that because I've sometimes see symbols of her with this particular experience, very strong symbols of her, but I never really researched too much into it, which is my shortcoming. But it was interesting because when I was there, I was like trying to feel around the house. And usually when in the house clearings I felt before, I can really feel when there's something there. It's like I walk through a wall of water. It's like, whoop,
Mm,
there's like
wow.
a heaviness. But I didn't feel that here. I was like, oh, I wonder what's happening. Um, but when I moved closer to him, I felt it around him. And so I was like, has this moved with you? And he was like, yep. And so I didn't say this to him because I didn't want to freak him out, but I was like, I think it's you versus the house.
Hmm.
And so I told him I was just going to meditate on his energy and it's gonna be very not dramatic. Like I don't expect things to fly around or any sort of Hollywood special effects. He was actually just like working on his laptop while I was in the other room just meditating.
Hmm.
Um and I kept downloading, I think, memories of his of like childhood trauma and abuse and things of that nature. So I asked him if that was all true, and he said yes. And so I told him, I think what's happening is like darker energies are latching on to things that are enticing or delicious to them. And I'm not saying this person's name, so I think it's fine if I share this information.
I think so. Yeah.
They participate in a lot of psychedelics. And so I told them, and again, I'm not, an expert on this, but just what I was downloading, it felt like because of the combination of um, casual psychedelics and really intense childhood trauma and abuse, I think that is creating a really nice, like, feasting opportunity
Hmm.
for darker things to come in.
Hmm.
Um, And so I just told him to be very aware of when he's participating in psychedelics and to ask for protection. Um, and maybe lay off a little bit. I don't know if he has, but but he's since messaged me and said that things have been a lot calmer in his home. And I think just bringing that awareness to him brings awareness to his own power
Hmm.
to really protect himself. But what I thought was really sweet as well was during my meditation, I sometimes see like loved ones on the other side or entities that would be helpful and protective for him. And I kept seeing like an Asian family. And this man is not Asian. Like he had a statue of Kuan Yin, but other than that, he's a very British man. And I was like, I don't know why, but I kept seeing like Asian people and Asian family that were helpful to you. And then he told me a story of an Asian family that his family used to live next to. And they were like the only Asian family in the neighborhood. And his father or his family really befriended them. And they would share meals together and they would look out for each other. And he hasn't kept in contact with them. But I was like, I feel like someone from that family is definitely on your side. It felt like an older woman, like maybe their grandmother, that was in that family,
Hmm.
definitely looking out for you. And it just warmed my heart because it made me think of like, these people that we have these really sweet moments with who are not in our life for very long, but who don't forget us even when they're on the other side.
Hmm. And and
Um,
it makes me think of the the statue of Kuan Yin makes me wonder, and I think you might have suggested this, if the energy of that woman is actually connected to that statue as well as the
Oh,
actual,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like somehow
yeah,
she's embedded
yeah,
in the stone
yeah,
of that statue.
absolutely. And so that's like my version of like a real life exorcism. Again, it's nothing dramatic. Things aren't flying around. No one's head spinning. But it's more subtle and it's more of just let's bring awareness to some energies that we might not be aware of. But at the same time, I am going to use my energy and the energy and the spirit of what I believe to be my team and clear out the space almost like in my mind, when I visualize it, it's like an astral battle
Mhm.
almost.
Yep.
I watch a lot of comic book things and read a lot of sci-fi, so my head goes to that place.
And you're an artist as well, right?
I used to draw a lot, and I'm really of course, you brought that up because 'cause you're intuitive, but that's something that I've been really wanting to get back into. I was literally gonna take out my, um, colored pencils last night, and I didn't, but I'm gonna do that tonight, especially because you
Excellent. Yeah.
Um, and so that's what I visualize in my meditation. That's the energy I project when I'm clearing of like sweeping the house with like a powerful light. And even after when I leave, like going back remote viewing wise and like planting or anchoring light there. Um, and I will check up on the person, once every, a couple of months down the road just to see how it's going.
Mhm.
And hopefully it's better, and it seems to be better. But again, this is not something that I was ever trained in. It's just something that felt natural to do
Yeah.
almost. Yeah.
I almost wonder what kind of training you could possibly get, right? It's a personal it's a personal journey to figure out your own practice and how you move forward with it. And it makes me think about the experience you had of connecting with the Kuan Yin statue. It was probably partially um the way that you will cleanse the space, but I wonder if it was also the energy itself connecting with you and showing you that
Yeah,
actual literal, right? Do you
yeah.
think?
That could be yeah, that's hitting home for me. Because again, I hope that all of this is guided by something bigger than ourselves, because I usually don't know what I'm doing when it comes to clearing homes, and it's different every time. This is maybe the fourth home I've cleared, and this is the first time that energy has come in. And I think also because that could be a powerful symbol for him, even though he himself is not very well versed in Kuan Yin, just the anchor there and the connection with the Asian family and him collecting those kinds of statues might have been enough of a connection for that energy to present itself.
Yeah. What kind of things, if you can share, if you can remember, what kind of things did he experience that led him to contact you? What was he seeing? Do you remember details like that?
Yeah, he'd tell me that he'd see like shadows in mirrors, like dark figures in mirrors. He'd tell me that there would just be like loud bangs, noises in random places in the home. And then he would tell me he would see like dark figures come out of the fireplace.
Mm,
So really intense, scary things um, that I myself didn't experience. I wonder why, because I'm not that I want to see it, but I would. And also, he said that when he had a guest over one time, and they were just sitting on the chair, and the guest felt something move through them, and they were like not having a seizure, but like shaking and spazzing, like something moved
wow.
through them. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and so I didn't experience any of that. But again, that doesn't mean that they're not there or that's not what he experienced.
Right. I mean, maybe it's because you are protected.
Yeah,
Maybe,
maybe just because we're like you would like not to. make us seem special, but you and I are just so much more aware of what we need to do for our energetic hygiene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's yeah, it's not a matter of being special. It's a matter of being fortunate enough to have the curiosity at a very young age to pursue this and then to get to the point where that's something you even think about at all. Most people, you know, most people don't have that. Most people just they don't really they're not interested really. Although I do think I think everybody is interested. I think if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, you tell someone you're a medium, they're interested. But
yeah,
the idea of pursuing it, of being kind of obsessed with it all their lives, that's not something that most people have or that a lot of people have. And so they don't
yeah,
have they're not exposed to the idea of requiring protection. And I
yeah,
think also I mean, I don't feel that I get this feeling about you too. I don't feel that I personally need protection per se. I feel like I am protected. You know, I am
yeah,
protection type thing,
yeah, that
you
makes
know?
sense, 'cause yeah, I don't wake up every day asking or, like, doing a meditation for protection. I think partly because you and I just may believe is not the strong word, but just, like, feel the protection that is there for us
Mhm.
already.
Mhm.
But it reminds me of another house clearing that I did, and this
Mm.
woman was Catholic. And with every house clearing, not that I've done so many, but like with the house clearings
4
I've
is a
done,
lot.
it's always my intention to remind the person of their own power, and like you don't actually need me to do this. I'm just going to remind you of your own power to do this.
Mhm.
And so, with that person, I told them to pray on and call on like their Virgin Mary and their Jesus to help them clear the home. And in that in that experience, I did feel like the walking through water experience of like a heaviness in the space. And after we I led her through a prayer and meditation of her calling in her people, it's like an immediate like lift. It was just so weird. It's like I could the room. You know what I mean? Like I could
It's just
fly around the room.
yeah, the like the feeling, the
Yeah.
lightness of the
Yeah.
atmosphere. Yeah.
It's really there for you to like feel.
So with the one that you did in the UK, it felt as though it was potentially more attached to the personal experience of the
Yeah.
person. But in
Yeah.
others, it has been connected to the house itself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
are like for instance for the Catholic woman who you helped, was the house an old house? Did it have any kind of history? Was it something like that?
Yeah, it was a house or an it was a apartment in Soho, and it was interesting because the spirit that was there felt like someone who kept the house or was a, maid
Mm,
for the house, and so was very protective of how everything was
mhm.
and how things should be. Um, I didn't get too much history, but I definitely felt it was a woman, and the person I was with, before she said anything, she said that it was also a woman to her.
Okay.
Yeah. And I when I was there, I saw a flash of, like, dark hair, and, like, it felt like a younger woman, and I just felt like I wanted things really clean and orderly.
Mm. That's interesting. You just made me think of our mutual friend Dana, who this happened. This scheduling of this happened so quickly that I didn't even get a chance to tell her that we're meeting. But I'm sure
Oh,
if she knew, she would say hello because she loves you.
yeah. I
Um,
love her.
but we went to the Merchant House in in Lower East Side of New York, and we of course went for the express purpose of connecting with the spirits there. And
Yeah.
we got have you been?
No, I've not heard of the Merchant House.
It's a very, very old house. I think probably dates back to the 1700s. I think,
Does
and
someone live there now?
Nope, no one lives there now. It's a museum now, but
Okay.
up until I think until the maybe the 30s, I think somebody lived there. And the woman
Mm.
who lived there was a descendant of the people who had of the family who had owned the house for the whole time. And it fell into disrepair, just that whole story, but it's notoriously haunted.
Ah,
And so, you know, a lot of people who are interested in spirit go there to experience what happens. And there are 3 floors, and it's a museum because it really is very much the way it was at least in the late 1800s onward. It hasn't changed. They've kept it exactly the same, and probably also added some of their own furniture and things like that to fill in the blanks. But so there are 3 floors. The kitchen is in the basement, and then you've got the parlor and all that in the middle, and then upstairs is bedrooms. But then there's a 4th floor that's kind of an attic, and it's where the help would stay. And they had
mm.
there are a lot of stories about, I mean, you probably already know the stories about being a young Irish woman in New York and coming to New York and meeting the
Yeah,
help and the suffering that they experienced, and, you know,
exactly.
just almost slavery level experience when they came. And
That's the kind
so
of, yeah, absolutely.
that's the kind of, oh, I thought you were gonna say,
I would
so
say this is the kind of energy I was feeling at that
yeah,
place.
that's what I'm picking up on. And so we we went up and we stood in front of the one of the bedrooms that the help would sleep in. And we both picked up on the energy of a young female. And it just felt, I think it was March or something when we went, but I got this feeling of spring, of the
Mm.
night before the family was leaving for their summer holiday, and she was going to be staying behind. And I felt that there was some kind of lover involved in the situation, and just this real excitement and feeling of freedom that she wasn't going to have to go with the family. And
Mhm.
that feeling and that experience stayed with me for months and months and months and months. It would pop up. She stayed with me. She popped up
Wow.
all the time until finally
Mm.
I said something to Dana when we were journeying. I explained to her that, you know, it's so present with me. I think she's attached to me, actually. And that never happens to me. So
Yeah.
Dana kind of did a bit of a clearing with her
Yeah.
and released her, and it worked. Because Dana too is really attached or is really Dana is would call herself a psychopomp and is
Uh,
very interested in, you know, the aspect of helping energies move on. And this is kind of a
yeah.
similar thing that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah, that's what that made me think of.
It's so
I,
interesting.
yeah, I wonder if it was. Did you get an idea of how old the spirit was or what era?
Yeah. Um, I feel like I'm seeing her now that we're bringing her up.
Probably are.
She
She's like,
felt to be in her early 30s to me,
hmm
like young, felt
hmm
young to me. And she felt Italian to me, like
okay.
darker hair. Yeah. Um, but Irish people could be dark haired as
That's
well.
right. In fact, I believe this woman was as well, but if she felt
Yeah.
Italian, she felt Italian.
Yeah, and she just felt really prissy and mad and disciplinary. Um, but part of the clearing was to send her on her way.
hmm
That's what it felt like to me. And then the space lifted and it just felt like and she didn't have an issue after that.
Mm, interesting.
Mhm.
Interesting. Yeah. And have you ever had an encounter with an energy that you would consider dangerous?
You know what's interesting is only when I'm doing drugs in a very reckless way.
Mm,
Yeah. Like, I'm not gonna get arrested for this, am I not?
no, you're
I
not doing
I
them now, so
I
no one can
stopped
prove anything.
doing I stopped doing cocaine specifically because of that.
Mm.
So when I did cocaine, I I sound even so old-fashioned saying the full name. When I did coke, I I would feel and see just in my mind's eye like things grasping at me.
hmm
And that was not fun. And I was like, this is a very, very dangerous thing for me to take.
hmm
and I don't want to have these experiences with these entities on this substance anymore.
Mm. Yeah, because Coke, I don't judge any substance at all, because I think, first of all, they all have, like Hamilton, what's his name? Hamilton, from Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia. Can't think of his last name, but a lot of people will probably know who I mean. He always says, and I believe as well, that they all have value and have a reason for existing, and probably have an incredible purpose, but sometimes they're abused, of course. A chemical like cocaine, it's hard to use it in a conscious way. So
Yeah,
it would be difficult to find any way to patch up those Swiss cheese holes that are created in the energy field by doing
that's
that
such
kind
a
of
good
substance.
visual, but yeah, that's such a good metaphor, by the way. The Swiss cheese holes.
I
I could
think I
see them.
actually got that from Matt Kahn, because he talks a lot about psychedelics, and
Yeah,
psychedelics are an incredible tool. I use them myself, and but I think a lot of people maybe don't use them consciously and use them too excessively and don't
yeah,
integrate after the fact. And so that he's the one who says, he often, when he if I don't know if you know who Matt Kahn is, but if not, he's just
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
he's
Yeah,
amazing. um he says that he sees Swiss cheese in the energy field of the people that he's talking with, if they are people who don't use psychedelics in a conscious way and use them too
well,
often.
that makes 100% sense to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
sure.
Because you open yourself with those kind of medicines, you open yourself to a reality beyond the one that we see in front of us. And that's a
Exactly.
reality that people like you and I open ourselves to regularly. So
Yeah,
if you do it and aren't conscious of what is what, if you're not conscious of your own desire to heal, I think, and the process of it, then it leaves you open to things. I think.
yeah.
I don't know, but
Especially also with a party drug like Coke, people are usually taking it to escape something
yeah.
and like not really look at something. And that I feel is again really delicious for like something for like an entity to feast on,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I have had I did um open myself to those energies when I was a kid. I just was so fascinated already with all things supernatural, right?
Yeah,
And saw The Exorcist, which is the one of the most frightening movies ever, right? And just
yeah.
decided that I wanted to, get in touch with some kind of energy that would talk back to me on a, talk board, right? And so I I did it, and I would play with it by myself regularly. Nothing would happen. It would never work. I always
Yeah,
wanted it to, it never would. And then I started playing with Ouija board with a group of friends, and it was something that we did just to pass time. And
mhm,
I was working on a musical review, like a Christmas musical review, when I was about 15, 16. And it was during this time that we were using this Ouija board, and they were a part of this Christmas review. And we rehearsed for like 2 weeks. It was all music. We rehearsed for like 2 weeks. And then one day, on the day that we're going to be doing tech, which means you add in all the lights and sound and all that, a bunch of young kids were going to be coming and learning one song, probably take about an hour, hour and a half. And we were expected to kind of wait in the green room while they learned the song. So we brought the Ouija board just to pass the time. And I kind of threw it to the side. It was mine. I kind of threw it to the side, and we didn't really play with it. And then the kids were done learning their song. They came downstairs. We were all in the green room together. Little time passes, and all of a sudden I hear one young kid's voice call out my name, Kristen Harlow. And so I went into where they were, and I saw that there were these two tiny, tiny little 5-year-olds, adorable little 5-year-olds with the Ouija board. And there were people around them, adults, and I came over, and the planchette, the tool that you use to, go to the
yeah.
letters and stuff, was going out of control. It was going in like a figure eight, like really, 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 really fast, and yelling out swear words and saying my name. not yelling, obviously, but
Wait, there were 5-year-old. Are these 5-year-olds actual 5-year-olds or spirit
no,
5-year-olds?
these were 5-year-old
Oh,
girls who had come to learn the song, and they
oh
found
my
the
God.
Ouija board and started playing with it without asking or anything, and it called my name, and I came over, like I said, and it was, I'm not gonna repeat the words because we're going on YouTube and it probably will be not allowed, I don't think, but, like, saying really, really horrible swear words to me. And these are 5-year-old kids that don't have the dexterity to even move the thing fast in any shape. And they couldn't spell. They didn't know who I was. And I kind of don't remember what happened after that. I think one of the adults probably stopped it and I walked away and kind of forgot about it, which is what I think happens often when you experience things like that. But that energy followed me for years after. I had other experiences in other places where that energy appeared in front of others and others experienced it. So I know it's real. I no longer feel its presence or believe that it has any effect, but it is real. It's definitely a real energy.
Wow, that's terrifying.
It is terrifying, and it doesn't sound possible. It sounds like most people would probably say it's made up, but it's just simply not.
Yeah.
It's not made up. It's a true story. Yeah.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had too many experiences with Ouija boards. 'Cause again, they never worked for me, but I think like really wanting it to work makes it not work.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't work for me when I was alone. When I started using it with that group, it worked and some interesting things happened for sure.
Um,
But that was probably the most interesting, I would say,
yeah,
thing that happened. Um, yeah, it's interesting. It's like, is it an entity that is outside of us, or is it a part of us? I don't know. It's a question I ask a lot.
yeah. Well, we're all one. Everything is a part of
That's right.
the same. And again, I think the more you do this work or seek out the spiritual or open yourself up and work on yourself, they feel to be less terrifying, I feel.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just feel to be just existing
Mhm.
and then almost like just wanting to respect each other. Like that's where I come. That's
Mhm.
my perspective right now.
And to have a level of forgiveness almost for them, to have
Yeah.
a level of inclusion rather than exclusion, of
Yeah. Yeah.
welcoming them into the light, if anything. And it's like, I think also the Catholic Church and the, exorcism that seems to spring from the Catholic Church kind of dominates the whole topic. But in fact, it's not as cut and dry as it's presented
Yeah.
when it comes from that school of thought.
Yeah. I'm fascinated to actually speak to some like Catholic priests who've had some real experiences, if any.
Yeah. There's a movie that just came out with Russell Crowe. He's pretty good in it. And he
It's good, the
plays
movie.
it's pretty good, yeah. It gets a little bit over the top and,
Yeah.
just because of what The Exorcist did, all of them try to match that level of and don't have a lot of originality. But he's good, and apparently a true story about a priest who worked directly for the Pope as an exorcist.
Interesting. Okay, I'll put that on my list.
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but it's pretty good. Um, well, Pear, this has been a really interesting conversation, and
Yeah, sorry.
I feel that, like, I feel you are moving in more of a direction to be doing even more of that kind of work. Your energy itself is just it just is so clearing and so peaceful that I'm not surprised that it would be a calling for you. And I just feel
Oh,
it's,
thank you.
yeah, I feel that there's more of it in the future for you. Um, And before we end, do you have a social media or a website that you'd like to share with our lovely
Yeah.
listeners?
My social media handle on TikTok and Instagram is The Awakenist.
Okay.
Um, and on my feed, I just share um client stories and readings. I hope people find healing, and pictures of my dog. And my website is just theawakenist.com.
Okay, The Awakenist.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait till
Oh,
you
my
come
pleasure.
back. Yeah.
My pleasure. Yeah.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us and for listening along, and we love you.
Bye.